In October 2012, Star Citizen was announced, a crowdfunding project that nearly overnight brought back the dream of space sim games. Today, Star Citizen is still being developed, and safe to say, things have changed since its initial pitch. Let's then take a look back at what has happened in those 10 years. Recently, the project reached $500 million fundraising milestone, and yes, I'm not making this up. When I ranted about this milestone, which you can take a look, I'll link it down below, I was talking about the more negative side of the Star Citizen, so today I think it'd be only fair to take a look at some positives. Let's then set up the stage for you. It's mid-2000s, the space sims have gone into remission like a bad cancer after the initial bloat that was the 90s. Now, only a few spare stragglers keep up the fight for the space sim flying with trading and combat dream. Gaming industry itself has gone in on those newfangled military shooters and other simpler games. In 2012, Star Citizen is announced. It's like seeing Jesus rise from the grave, and frankly, it was biblical.
Oh. Apparently, our site is having millions of hits and is overloaded, so everyone out there, please be patient.
Excitement was in the overdrive, so much that it broke Roberts' own crowdfunding page, and sure enough, media picked up on this. Even Kickstarter came to rescue. At the time, crowdfunding was not yet tainted by no mighty number 9.
And make the bad guys cry like an anime fan on prom night.
Seemed as long as project got funded, it would produce something. Very quickly beating their own set goal of $2 million on Kickstarter, the funding craze did not end there, and eventually Roberts relaunched their own site, in time beating every single stretch goal they put out. Like pets. I'm not kidding about this one. Star Citizen eventually, in the end of 2015, landed on its last listed stretch goal for $65 million, and since then they've gone free-form. No goals, just pure upwards ticking funding number. See, Star Citizen, with their success story, proved that with careful detail and good presentation, it was possible to fund even the most ambitious projects. But what's more important, well, at least to me, was along with one other game, Star Citizen proved space sims are not dead. And Star Citizen in particular proved financial viability of this type of a game, and for that alone, they have my thanks. In the early days around 2014, the project hit, shall we call it a snag on the promised deadlines thanks to, in part, of the outsourced FPS module. And if the ever larger stretch goals were indicators of anything, Star Citizen and Squadron 42 would take a lot more time. Funding, however, was not a problem. Thanks to clever marketing and simple realization, rather than setting stretch goals ad infinitum involving new features or ships to play with, you can just sell ships themselves as in-game assets. This idea proved so successful that sales and funding only increased. During this time, Star Citizen released to the public a playable alpha, where the peasantry was given the chance to grope the hyper-poly ships and several unconnected game loop placeholders for all but 10 minutes of fun. But boy, was it still impressive to see those graphics and designs for different ships for sure. Already then, working seamless transition of flying the spaceship from space to landing on a planet, as well as the very modern looking FPS, gave a very strong impression, if nothing else. And not just because of the polygon count for each spacey ship. Now, while I joke here a little, the ships available to play around with truly were works of art. No other game in my mind really comes close to vehicles being designed quite as detailed or complex like this. As for the inevitable move to sell spaceships outright, well, whether or not you like this or not, it's undeniable that marketing had outdone themselves. Star Citizen once more proved that supplementing game updates and new releases with fancy pre-rendered trailers, cool media, works. And it works really well. Even if you don't buy anything, a good trailer still sticks with you. Old Blizzard knew that too, and we still like their old trailers from back in the day. Over the years, additional features got added to the playable alpha, and to some extent you could even say that you were there right next to developers seeing the game being made. Well, for better or worse. As for Squadron 42, to this day, Cloud Imperium has really showed rather little of the star-studded space epic single-player game. This part of the project seems to still be shrouded in extreme secrecy. Even so, many believe that this will be the first thing to come out the door before the multiplayer counterpart. 2014 and onwards, it was in this time that you would see not only pre-rendered cutscenes like trailers appear more and more, but also weekly and monthly updates from developers. Highly polished, well presented and edited is not exactly how you would describe Wingman's hangar in early days. But it was nonetheless a little bit more behind the scenes look than your average game got. But in time, more polished TV-like presentations started to creep in, to a point that despite the information value presented, Star Citizen's YouTube videos feel quite professional. And no, TheYamiks is totally not envious of that as a content creator himself. Today, Star Citizen is still very active and still selling spaceships, putting out trailers and highly polished PR pieces, earning gaming's biggest budget of $500 million and celebrating 10 years since its public debut. For me, the story of Star Citizen is less about the games, but rather its impact on everyone else around them. They prove that, if nothing else, space sims are not dead, and they can certainly be thanked for that. The genre of games can be industry-leading if given the chance, and as I discovered during my research for making a piece on history of space sims, frankly, without Star Citizen, the modern resurgence of these games would not have happened. Well, not really. With top-notch marketing, even if you're not financially part of Star Citizen, there is something to observe. And though the future is still very cloudy above and around Star Citizen and Squadron 42, the wildest ride is still yet to come, no matter how it turns out. So, what do you think of Star Citizen? It's been 10 years as it's chugged along. Let me know down below what opinions have you formed about it. Additionally, if you care to support my work a little bit more than by just watching, well, check out my Patreon and toss a buck my way. But as for now, I'm gonna keep on observing Star Citizen's development, so be sure to subscribe for more content.